Nobody saw this coming, not even the Day One G-Unit fans. But Lloyd Banks just lit the internet on fire after putting 50 Cent on full blast. And the streets are divided. In a surprise interview clip that dropped overnight, Banks didn't hold back. No subliminals, no cryptic tweets. Just straight-up shots fired. I gave that man everything. Loyalty, bars, years of my life. And all I got back was silence. And contracts I ain't even understood when I signed M. BOM, that one line sent. The culture into a frenzy. G-Unit trending. Old footage resurfacing. People questioning what really happened behind closed doors all those years ago. Was 50 using his crew to build his empire? Did Banks really get iced out of millions, while 50 launched TV shows, liquor brands, and fake beefs for clout? And more importantly, why did Lloyd Banks finally decide to speak now? Back in the early 2000s, before power, before champagne deals, before Instagram beefs and TikTok rap challenges, there was G-Unit, raw, ruthless, unstoppable, and at the heart of that explosive movement, right beside the bulletproof boss himself, 50 Cent, stood Lloyd Banks, the punchline king, the quiet killer. See, Lloyd wasn't the loudest in the room. He didn't chase headlines, but when that man stepped in the booth, whole cities went silent. It was Banks bars that made tracks like On Fire and Warrior straight-up anthems. It was his voice that gave G-Unit its edge. And while 50 was dodging bullets and counting enemies, Banks was holding down the music. But even at the peak, those who paid attention knew something was always off. The energy between 50 and Banks felt tense, like Banks wasn't fully celebrated. Like his shine was always dimmed just enough to keep the spotlight centered on one man. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. The early bond? Brothers or soldiers. Banks and 50 met before the world cared. South Jamaica, Queens, same streets, same struggle. While 50 had that kick-the-door-down energy, Banks was the smooth tactician. He rode in silence, observed, waited, then struck when G-Unit formed with Young Buck, Tony, Yayo, and Banks as the lyrical anchor. The chemistry was undeniable. And 50, he was the general. No questions asked. What he said happened, but loyalty was the price of admission. From the jump, Banks played his role. Even when critics said he had the cleanest bars in the crew, he never let ego lead. Even when 50 called him out publicly for not working hard enough, Banks stayed silent. Even when deals were signed behind his back, he kept his mouth shut, because for Banks, G-Unit wasn't just a rap crew, it was family. But looking back now, was it love or was it control? The rise, when Banks could have been bigger than 50, here's the thing no one likes to admit. At one point, Lloyd Banks had the potential to be bigger than 50. Yeah, we said it. The Hunger for More 2004 debuted at No. 1 on the Billboard 200 and moved over 433,000 copies in the first week. That album had the streets in a chokehold. On Fire, Karma, I'm So Fly. These weren't just hits, they were soundtrack. Material for an entire generation. And the women? Oh, they were locked in. Banks had that mystery, that cool but dangerous vibe 50 never really had. But what happened when Banks started getting too hot? That's when things started shifting. Features started drying up. Budgets got cut. 50 started pushing his other ventures. Reebok deals, vitamin water, movie roles, and Banks. He became the background character in his own story. Whispers in the industry. You gotta go through multiple sources, including DJs, engineers, and ex-label reps, have since spoken out. If you wanted Banks on a verse, you had to clear it through 50. Banks had songs that were shelved, cause 50 didn't think they were right for the brand. He had his own album rollout ready. 50 shut it down overnight, said it wasn't time. So while the world was shouting GGGG knit. Behind closed doors, the empire was fracturing. And Banks. He was building up a mountain of resentment. The first sign, when 50 went pubelice in 2010. The public got its first real taste of the tension when 50 said this in an interview. Banks is like, lazy man. He waits for me to tell him what to do. If I don't push him, nothing happens. That quote cut deep. Fans were shocked. Banks, silent. But insiders say he was crushed because for someone who had never been disloyal, never slandered the team, and never asked for more than he gave, to be painted as a slacker, that was betrayal. Worse. It was manipulation. Young Buck and the chain Ariastio, and here's where things got real messy. Around the same time, Young Buck started going public with his own drama, with 50 exposing shady contracts, phone calls, and money being withheld. And what did 50 do? He leaked voicemails, laughed about lawsuits, played it all like a big chess game. Banks watched. And that's when it hit him. If he'll do that to Buck, I might be next. But Banks still didn't speak. He just started, pulling away. Quietly, 2014. The silent split fast forward to 2014. G-Unit had a surprise reunion. They hit the Summer Jam stage. The buzz was wild. Nostalgia was in the air. Fans thought, we back. But that magic didn't last long. Behind the scenes, Banks wasn't vibing with the direction. There was no creative freedom, no respect, no space to grow. So he stepped back, again, this time, for good and the press release. The announcement? Nothing, just silence. That's how G-Unit ended, not with a bang, but with a slow fade. End 50. He moved on like it never mattered. But now, Banks is done being QE-tunned. That brings us to now minus 2025. That interview clip dropping like a bomb. Lloyd Banks sitting on a dimly lit set, eyes focused, voice steady, and saying it straight. He used us? All of us Giona wasn't a brotherhood. It was a brand, and we were just products. He talked about contracts he never saw, about verses he recorded that got sold overseas without his knowledge, about how he once asked 50 to support his independent tours. And Fifth told him, "Why would I help you compete with me?" Damn. That one quote. It broke the internet. Lloyd Banks never wanted to go public. That wasn't his lane. He was always the quiet sniper, let 50 handle the headlines. The drama, the billionaire flexing. Banks just stayed focused on the music, the craft, verses that had people rewinding tracks just to catch a double entendre. They missed the first time, but ego don't stay quiet forever. Not when it's constantly getting stepped on. G-Unit wasn't just a brand. It was 50's playground. Let's be real. 50 Cent didn't just build a label, he built a kingdom. But the more the empire grew, the clearer it became who sat on the throne and who was just pawns on his board. Banks was one of the sharpest lyricists of his time, but what did he get in return? Control, silence, and a boss who kept pushing. The narrative that he was lazy, he was slow, he didn't want it bad enough. And the worst part? 50 told that story so loud and so often that even fans started to believe it. But behind closed doors, the truth was different. Behind the smoke, Banks was working. He just wasn't allowed to. A close friend of Banks, anonymous for obvious reasons, spoke up recently. He had an entire mixtape ready in 2016. 50 told him not to drop it because it would interfere with the G-Unit image. That tape never saw the light of day. Another source? Banks booked his own Europe tour in 2018, paid the deposits, had 11 cities locked in. 2 weeks before the first show, the promoter pulled out. Said 50's team reached out and made suggestions. Suggestions? Nah, that's sabotage. But that's how 50 played it. If you weren't moving through him, you weren't moving at all. The final phone call? You're either with me or you're nothing in the leaked interview. Banks drops a moment that's shocked even the most loyal G-Unit fans. "We was on the phone, bro. I said, let me go. Let me be independent. I'll never diss the unit. I just want to do my own thing." You know what he said? He said, "You're either with me or you're nothing." Let that sink in. The man who once called Banks his brother, who Banks stood by through shootouts, beefs, and scandal, was now telling him, "You're nothing without me." That one quote alone sent shockwaves through. The culture was this: how 50 always saw G-Unit, not as a team, but as a product line. A shelf of artists he could pick up and put down when it suited him. It started making a lot more sense. Tony Yayo, the middleman that stayed silent for years. Tony Yayo played the loyal soldier role. He was 50's hype man, the foot soldier, the ride or die of G-Unit. But in 2023, Yayo did a podcast where he subtly hinted that not everything was love behind the scenes. Sometimes being loyal don't mean you happy. Feel me? Sometimes you just play your position. And that line, "play your position," became the unofficial rule inside G-Unit. If you stepped out of line, you got iced. Just like Young Buck. Just like Game. And now Banks. The numbers don't lie. Banks held G-Unit down. Let's talk stats. The hunger for more went platinum within 6 months. On Fire peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. Banks wrote verses for G-Unit group tracks that fans still call the highlight of the songs. What did 50 do? He launched SMS Audio, F&V Vodka, Power, BMF, and made hundreds of millions. But when it came to giving his day one artist a seat at the table, silence. Banks said it best. He knew I wasn't a puppet. He knew I wasn't gonna kiss the ring forever. That scared him. The internet takes sides. Hashtag Team Banks versus hashtag Team FIF. As soon as Banks' interview clip dropped, the culture split. On one side, you had fans screaming, "It's about time he spoke up." 50 always been controlling. Look what he did to Buck, to Game, to Olivia. Banks was the real pen behind G-Unit. Period. But on the other side, Fifth's defenders came out strong. Banks been crying for years. He had opportunities. 50 made him. Without Fifth, he'd be just another mixtape rapper. This, some jealous energy. Don't diss the man who fed you. The debate went viral on X, formerly Twitter. Instagram clips flooded timelines. Podcasts like Drink Champs, Joe Budden, and $1 million worth of Game dedicated whole segments to it. And the one person who hadn't spoken, 50 himself. But that didn't last long. 50's response. The petty king strikes again in true 50 Cent fashion. He didn't issue a statement. He didn't go on a podcast. He went straight to Instagram. Posted an old photo of G-Unit with a caption that read, "Damn, they be missing me when the checks stop coming. LOL." And in the next slide, meme of Lloyd Banks working a cash register with the words, "When the mixtapes stop paying." Ouch, it was cold. Classic 50. And yet, it felt desperate because instead of addressing the real accusations, the business manipulation, the suppressed tours, the broken brotherhood, 250 just doubled down on the trolling. And that's when something unexpected happened. Rappers start speaking out. Crooked, I tweeted. Banks, one of the best to ever do it. That man deserved better. Period. Royce Da, 5 feet 9 inches, posted on IG. When your brother starts shining too bright, some folks pull the plug. Seen it too many times. Even Joe Budden, who's had his own share of label drama, said, "The way 50 handled Banks. That's not leadership. That's ownership. Big difference." Suddenly, Banks wasn't alone anymore. The hip-hop community was watching, and many were quietly rooting for him to finally get his flowers. And then came the surprise. Banks wasn't done talking late one night. Banks went live on Instagram. No promo. No warning. It's just him, in a hoodie. Mic in front of him, beat playing in the background. Then he dropped a freestyle. No hook. No chorus. Just 3 minutes of pure venom. Told me I was lazy. I was chasing peace, you was chasing power. While I starved beneath, watched you build an empire off my speech. Now I'm the villain, 'cause I found my teeth. Fans lost it. The comment section went insane. One fan wrote, "This is the bank we've been waiting for." Another, "He's spitting pain. 50 done, messed up." It's been 3 weeks since Lloyd Banks flipped the industry upside down. 3 weeks since he sat down and calmly dismantled the myth of brotherhood inside G-Unit. 3 weeks since he aired out the betrayals, the blackballing, and the pain buried behind platinum plaques. And now, he's not looking back. Banks ain't holding back anymore following his viral Instagram freestyle, the one that lit Twitter on fire and had fans quoting bars like scriptures. Banks started dropping snippets, not full songs. It's just 30-second clips. Each one more raw than the last. One video shows him rapping in front of an old warehouse in Southside Queens, wearing all black with a single line that made the timeline stop. I gave him bars, gave him blood, gave him time, but what I never gave him was my mind. Suddenly, Banks was everywhere. Hip-hop blogs, Spotify trending. TikTok clips using his old verses resurfaced with captions like, "This man been talking pain. We just wasn't listening." The course of a survivor. Lloyd Banks' new era begins out of nowhere. Banks announced a project, The Course of a Survivor 2. Broken Loyalty. He said it was more than an album. It was a response, a statement, a memoir in rhyme. The cover? Throne made of shattered microphones, and one G-Unit chain buried beneath it. The fans knew what that meant. This wasn't about shots anymore. This was about cleansing. One track stood out in the teaser playlist, Elephant in the Unit and the bar that leaked. He bought the block, but I built the base. Now they askin' who led and who got replaced. Who's backing Banks? Some surprising supporters. Here's what shocked people. The artists coming out in support of Lloyd Banks. Eminem liked a fan comment saying, "Banks got bars, M respects." Benny the Butcher tweeted, "Banks still one of the illest with the pen. Don't get it twisted. Conway the Machine hit him directly. Let's work, King. You inspired me heavy." Atif Ness posted a cryptic message on Threads. Real lyricists never fall off. They just fall back, but they always return. The love was real. For the first time in years, Banks was being celebrated not as 50's former artist, but as his own man. Meanwhile, a 50's petty game escalates. What did 50 Cent do while all this was happening? He did what 50 does best. Petty, precise, and calculated trolling. He went on a PowerBook for set and posted a pic of himself holding a G-Unit bulletproof vest. Captioning, "Just a reminder. Some of us wore it, some of us folded under pressure." He didn't name Banks, but we all knew. Then he posted an old video of Banks in 2004, struggling to answer interview questions, and wrote, "This y'all Shakespeare. Get this man a dictionary." The comments split. Some laughed, some cloned Banks, but others flooded 50's page with hashtag Team Banks, saying, "You're making jokes while he's making classics." And for the first time in a long time, 50's troll powers weren't working. The internet wasn't riding with him. They were riding for Banks. The quiet reveal, 50's true intentions all along. A few days later, an ex-Viacom producer came forward, anonymously, claiming there was a time when 50 was pitching a G-Unit TV series, 2 stars. Banks didn't sign off. That derailed everything. So all those years of tension, all those quiet moves, maybe it wasn't just music. Maybe 50 was bitter because Banks refused to be exploited again. 50 once said in an interview, I'm not emotional. It's just business. But that was the thing. For Banks, this was never just business. This was family. Until it wasn't, he could have called me. The heartbreaking confession and an unexpected twist. During his own live stream, Banks finally showed emotion. Sitting in a dimly lit studio, he opened up. I ain't never been jealous of Fifth. I was proud of him. I watched him go from the block to movies to mogul. But the thing that hurt me the most is that he could have called me. Just once, man to man. Before the memes, before the trolling, before acting like I was nothing. Silence. You could feel the pain in his voice, the years of suppressed disappointment, the betrayal from someone he once called his big bro. And the internet felt it too. One comment said, I ain't even from Queens and I feel this in my chest. The ultimate power move. Banks announces documentary. Then came the moment no one saw coming. Banks posted a teaser clip titled More Than a Unit. The Lloyd Banks story, a full documentary series in the works, chronicling his rise, suppression, fallout, and legacy. The voiceover? They told me loyalty was everything. But what they meant was control. Now I'm telling my story. No edits, no filters, no boss to answer to. The first episode is set to drop on YouTube and Amazon Prime this fall, and the industry is shaken so. Where does that leave 50? Ironically, 50 has been busy promoting PowerBook 5 and his new tequila line. But now, every interview he walks into, the first question is, are you and Banks still good? Is Giuna officially dead? Did you really tell him he was nothing without you? And the silence in those moments says more than any meme ever could. Legacy over loyalty at the end of the day. This whole thing ain't about just two rappers falling out. It's about every artist who signed a deal thinking it was family, only. To find out they were just assets, it's about ownership. Respect, voice, power, Lloyd. Banks may have stayed quiet for years, but now he's louder than ever, and the world finally is listening. If this story hit you in the gut like it did us, you already know what to do. Drop a hashtag Team Banks or hashtag Real Lyricist Energy in the comments. Hit like if you think Banks deserves his flowers while he's still here grinding. Share this video with someone who used to rap every word of On Fire and thought G-Unit would last forever. This ain't just hip-hop drama. This is about legacy. It's about the ones who stood in the shadows, writing history, and are now stepping into their OWN spotlight. Banks didn't burn bridges. He just built his own. Salute to the Punchline King.